Thank you guys for this panel discussion. I have a few questions for you guys. And at the end of it, of course, I'll want some of the guys, of course, to ask questions at the end. Maybe I'll start with Collins to you. Okay. So my first question to you will be, as a startup founder, how did you prioritize security from day one at Tripoli without slowing down your product development pace?
Okay, I saw that question on the on the briefing. I'd first of all start by what Tripoli does. So Tripoli is building an operating system for travel agents. So essentially, they can be able to manage their payments as well as manage their business online. Just to answer your question. So what are some of the hurdles that development teams face when they're trying to build products from the onset? I think for us, it's startups have competing needs, right? You have speed versus burn, right? You're operating on limited time, right? Like it's on and off. But anyway, yeah, you're operating on limited time, right? You have this concept of burn, right? And need to achieve product market fit by a certain point. Otherwise, you're gone, right? So you have this competing need of, you have security needs within your product, as well as you have to build a product that people are able to use and pay you for, right? For us, we are building a SaaS business. You know how hard it is to sell SaaS products, particularly within the B2B space. For travel, I mean, it's all levels of difficult. So for us, what we did is we focused on what is easy to do, right? What is easy is you're building an API, right? That will be consumed by your clients. So essentially, you need to ensure that the API endpoints are secure, particularly API endpoints from when you're working with payment partners, you have callbacks for the developers. Here you have webhooks, right? How do you whitelist some of the servers that are able to hit your system? The other thing that we realize is that we have secrets, we have environment variables. How do we store them within the platform, right? We have secret management tools that we use internally, and it is, can you hear me? It is essentially, right? So essentially, it is essentially permission based, right? You have production credentials. Guys who are here, you've used Daraja before. Daraja has a ton of keys, right? How do you store them securely, right? So this is some of the things that we did when we were starting to sort of like bridge that gap or those competing needs that we had between speed and security.
Okay, awesome. I think I'll go to Harry. In your experience, what are the most common misconceptions organizations have about security access management in DevOps, and how do you recommend maybe addressing them early?
I think I'd like to put it into three and say more like three misconceptions. So the first, I'd like to say that many organizations and especially DevOps entities, what they tend to do is that the first misconception is they think security more of like tries to slow things down. So they tend to say that security more of like delays deployment to platforms. But in reality, that's not the case. So when, like I said in my slide, if you have automated security, then you definitely have faster deployment, also secure applications deployed. So you find in this state, you're not only just securing your application, but you're also faster to market for products. So the second misconception I can say is in terms of using infrastructure as code mostly in a blind manner. So what you'll find that infrastructure as code is good for automating toil tasks and also reducing repeatability of things. But in this case, it can also propagate like hard-coded secrets, for example, to application. And that exposes you, especially in terms of applications. So in term, I think for the third one I can say is that many organizations also have another misconception of saying that if security is managed from a central point of view, like for example from a security team, then they tend to believe that's enough. But in a DevOps environment, it's fast moving and also things change. It's a dynamic environment. So basically what you need is to do more review of these security tools, security rules, and using tools like Terraform, using tools like Chef Inspect, then you definitely are going to reduce such misconceptions. So in terms of how we can maybe try to solve them earlier, is well, let's invest and also let's use tools like, for example, Servercore Secret Manager. It helps you protect with encryption and store your secrets. Another thing is also using of, like what I'd say, the ephemeral secrets and also the zero trust principle model. So with all these aspects, what it tends to do is that it tends to bring about the principle of least privileges, especially in anything that is being used. So I think with these kind of strategies, you definitely protect your environment on an earlier stage. And also as you scale as your business grows, you scale. So you also scale in a smart manner. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Harry. Now, to the secrets manager and to the deployment, Mr. Faisal, this question is to you. Of course, it has been mentioned about secrets manager and, of course, things to do with deployment. My question to you, of course, on the fintech perspective is, how do fintech companies like Cellulant ensure a balance between rapid feature deployment and a rigorous security standard, especially when handling sensitive financial data?
Can you hear me? Okay, it works. A million, right? Okay, so the context of Cellulant or a fintech is that you're handling extremely sensitive operations, either payments or loans, people's value, right? Crypto assets, digital assets, money movement, etc. So security is probably the first and most important requirement, right? And there are several things that, from my experience, what we did at Cellulant that helped a lot. I think the first one would be observability, like being extremely vigilant with monitoring, telemetry, observability, being able to have a good view of your entire platform. Like that is the base. Without that, you're in trouble because you don't even know what's going on. If you have a threat that's started, you're clueless. So that's the first thing that businesses, fintechs or businesses that handle sensitive things, and my experience, we did a lot at Cellulant. And by implementing security, by implementing observability, and then extending it to the operations of the business, so service operations, so the team that actually runs 24/7, 365, handling incidents, not just security, but generally responding to customer issues, downtimes, APIs going down with third parties, etc. You also embed security into the fact that whenever there's anything, any anomaly that happens, that can be picked very quickly. If it's an anomaly that's a downtime somewhere down the line, it's resolved as a normal incident. But if it's an anomaly that cannot be explained, in fact, one of the things that we used to do was, whenever there's an incident that the root cause cannot be determined within a certain amount of time, we would treat it as potentially a security threat. 80%, 90% of the time, that wasn't the case, but it really helped a lot to pick the few security incidents or threats that happened. Another thing that's a good practice that we did was embedding security into our SDLC, into the software development lifecycle. So for example, when you have a feature request that comes from a backlog and you're doing design for that feature, we would do some threat modeling exercise and say, for example, we have this feature that we want to add onto our mobile app. It's a new feature. And for that feature, we need to expose an API from the backend. So we would ask questions like, this API, if an attacker were to spoof this API, how might that look like? You play different scenarios. How might they try to do it? And then how might we be able to, first detection, so monitoring again, first thing, and then how might we prevent it? And then you identify all the different set of controls and monitors that you want to implement. And you may not be able to implement all of them, but at least you rank and you put them on the roadmap and say, these are high impact things that we need to implement now in the current sprint. And then this is a roadmap for us to be able to implement these over the next few sprints, few iterations, etc. Along with that is balancing speed with definition of done. So essentially, by having the security teams or security experts input into the acceptance criteria of this feature that needs to be developed, it becomes proactively managed so that that feature, by the time it's being released, it also takes into account the controls, the necessary careful design aspects that need to be implemented. The other things that have been spoken about, I believe many of you guys, like things like baking your security policies that can be automated into the pipelines, et cetera, et cetera. Those you automate as much as you can. And then stakeholder engagement, like getting your stakeholders, the leadership team, right? So the finance team, all the critical stakeholders to buy in so that they're not just facing, even the, for example, the revenue, the commercial teams, they're not just putting pressure and saying, look, this feature needs to be out in 2 weeks, otherwise we're not in business. They need to know that that feature, if it means it's going to take 2 sprints to be built properly with the right controls, with the right security aspects covered, then it takes 2 sprints. And buy-in is very important. So engaging them well, and sometimes you need to employ very creative tactics, like put somebody on the spot and say, look, we're going to do some role play here. Let's assume we're under attack, and you have to manage the PR aspect of this incident. Guys, then wake up. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Maybe to Collins now, this question is posed to you. Of course, we've had Harry talk about security management, secrets management, and Faizal has talked about, of course, observability. To you, Collins, what one practical tool or tactic or framework as well, every dev team, no matter the size, should implement today to stay secure? Okay, yeah, I'll repeat the questions. From the secrets manager to observability.
We get it.
You guys get it.
Yes.
That one. Huh? What one practical tool anyway? What one practical tool or tactic or framework every dev team, no matter the size, of course, should implement today to stay secure?
I'll keep it simple. I think first off is, I think Faisal mentioned devs engaging stakeholders, and I could
And
see some
observability.
absolutely. There we have it. Anyway, yeah, I could see some devs smiling. This is something that I think a lot of you guys struggle with. But anyway, on to observability. So one tool that I have seen works is, I mean, again, keeping it simple, dependencies, right? Dependencies is at the verge of what you're building, right? I mean, you're not reinventing the wheel, using someone else's code to build what you're building, right? So using, say, like dependency scanning tools, say Dependabot, and also using CI/CD tools that can sort of like interface with SAST, right? This is, what do you call it? It's a testing mechanism for security that essentially scans through your code to ensure that when you're pushing code, it is not pushed with vulnerabilities at the end of the day, right? Keeping your dependencies as well updated, right? I think in Triply we use Dependabot. We also use SonarQube for the guys who've used SonarQube before. These are tools that essentially helps us detect some of this code smells tools, code smell issues or security vulnerabilities. I think one other tool, you've mentioned one tool, I'll give them 2. Faisal also mentioned, what do you call it, monitoring and incident management. This is something that is very important while you're building your company, particularly at the early stages and also at later stages. So we use Datadog for this. So essentially we're able to set up alerts in case anything seems a bit off. We're able to integrate that with monitoring alerts on Slack so that our internal development team can understand whenever we have potential issues. And at the same time, implementing tools or even engaging other people that can be able to sort of like pen test, right? So there are tools and there are also people that you can engage within your development cycles to ensure that you have a product that is free from these issues, particularly if you're handling finances, right? So this is that. I think that's what I'd say. Three things.
Awesome, awesome.
Great.
So to the guests, what is one of the tool? And this one goes to Steve. What is one of the tool that Triply uses? Just say one of the tool. No. I'm not giving any more caps. I think a notebook. Nani, Wycliffe, a notebook. Somebody raises questions from. Just pass the mic. Wycliffe, just pass the mic on this other side. One of the tool that Triply uses. One of the tool. No. He raised his hand first. Yeah, it's okay. I'll give you a hug, my guy.
I think he mentioned Datadog.
Awesome. Yeah. Wycliffe, he needs a hug. No. He needs a notebook. Wycliffe. So, thank you. So, of course, that Collins has mentioned some of the tools that they use. To Mr. Faisal, what's the biggest mistake maybe companies make by not prioritizing security from day one, and what does it cost them later?
It's a very good question, right? I think it's appropriate in many businesses. I think there are a number of mistakes, quite many actually, but time is limited. So the first one probably is assumptions that we're too small, our app is too niche, nobody's going to be interested in targeting us, right? We won't be attacked in the first week or in the first few months. India. It's a big mistake. Another one is underestimating the costs of paying technical debt. You always think, hey, you know what? I will add this thing. It'll just take half a sprint. It'll just take 10 man hours, 5 man days. You know what? It always takes that much time when you're under no pressure. But I'll talk about some scenarios where that's never the case when these things happen. And then the most interesting mistake and the more common one, I think, is related to the startup culture that's very pervasive, that glorifies rapid iteration, speed, right? Move fast, break things, and prioritizes that over careful design. You know what I mean, right? And so you're pushed to deliver something quick. It doesn't matter all the other things. You're like, no, find the quickest way to build this thing. So here's the thing. If your assumption that it won't happen to us turns out to be wrong, right? And then you actually become viral. You get /dotted. I don't know how many of you guys remember that term. Now you can be forgiven if you get a surprise spike in traffic. Good problem, right? You can survive that. Many businesses survive that. But if it so happens that, so let's assume you didn't take care of performance design, but if you take care of security, right? You just built the capability properly. You just built the main functionality. You didn't take care of security, but then your assumption that we won't be targeted is wrong. What happens in that scenario? You got a crisis in your hands. You got a crisis in your hands, and now, if you didn't even implement, for example, logging, monitoring, observability properly, you're clueless about what's going on. By the time you come to hear of the fact that you've been breached, it's a few hours later, which can be fatal, or the following day on social media, etc., on public channels, a complete PR crisis, right? So what happens in that case? There's panic in the organization. That's a consequence. A real life scenario. There's panic in the organization, and then now that assumption where it will take us a few days, it'll take us 10 man hours, 5 man days, half a sprint to build all the hygiene that we left out at the beginning. Because you are panicking, you over-exaggerate and you want to overcompensate. That's what always happens, right? So you want to go under each and every module, each and every API, each and every feature. You want to make sure that you bolt every bloody thing, right? So now all your capacity ends up being moved from feature-facing for the next probably few sprints, maybe 1 or 2 months, maybe a whole quarter, because you went through such an incident. So that's the cost of paying technical debt. That's one consequence. What's another consequence? PR nightmare, loss of trust, loss of credibility for the business, for the founders, for the teams, etc. Like some of these things are very difficult to recover. Another serious one is something that has been spoken about earlier, which is fines, right? If you end up getting breached and data is lost, sensitive data, what were you guys talking about? $5 million?
Yeah, 5 million.
Yeah, these are serious consequences.
Or does anyone have 5 million now? We can discuss later. But anyway, I mean, from Faisal's perspective, and the 5 million box is not, it's something that can help startups to push, of course, their company to the next level. Why pay 5 million while we have different infrastructures that offer you, regulatory compliances that not only meet international standards, but also local standards. But away from that, my final question is, of course, to Mr. Hare. How does Servercore maybe help clients scale securely without introducing fragility or overspending? Okay, particularly in emerging regions like East Africa. So I'll repeat the questions. How does Servercore help clients scale securely without introducing fragility or overspending? I know you had mentioned it during the product demo, but particularly in emerging regions like East Africa. I'm also now given the fact that, of course, the product is mostly focused on the Kenyan market. And of course, when it comes to the East African region, that's a different case.
Well, thanks for the question. When it comes to Servercore, I can speak, I think, for the whole night about features, what Servercore brings. So I'll just try to bring them into 5 categories and say, five features. We look at 1, reliability; 2, scalability; 3, integration to infrastructure. Then I think mostly what Faisal was talking about also, security. Then another thing is cost efficiency. So when it comes to cost efficiency, I think...
Just give me a minute. Steve, what are the 5 things that Servercore offers? Just 5. There was no integration.
No, he's right. There was integration.
What's the 5th one? Is he right?
He's very right. I think Wycliffe, you need to bring something this side.
Continue.
Well, so when it comes to cost efficiency, most of the resources that Servercore brings comes with more of cost efficiency aspects. And I think this, when it comes to East Africa, not only Kenya, even our neighbors, cost efficiency to any organization is something, it's a big need, and people try to make this as a foundation to it. So you find features like frozen aspects, frozen instances, like the use of managed Kubernetes. And then also when it comes to infrastructure, we have something like shared cores, whereby you only use what you need, and maybe your neighbors can use the rest of the other resources. So to any organization, especially in the East Africa market, it's something that's a plus to them. So the other thing is when it comes to reliability, well, we use modern infrastructure, and that's not an understatement. It's modern infrastructure. We guarantee you almost 99.98% in terms of uptime and availability for our resources. We even go to a further ahead and say, if there is a certain downtime, we will compensate you on a slash discount. That is just to showcase how confident we are in terms of our infrastructure that we have. And I think in the East African, let's say in the East African, what do I believe? Let me say ecosystem. You find that in terms of reliability is one key thing. There are places where there is no infrastructure, and only for the spend you have to use with Servercore resources is just internet, and you are assured of 99.98%. When it comes to security, we offer and try to ensure that most of our resources that or services, they are secured. In terms of global standardization, we meet. In terms of financial institutions, we meet all the certifications. When it comes to even health institutions, we have a lot of health clients. We also try to meet all those HIPAA rules, like the benchmarks and Frenchmarks I was putting about. So you find all these integrated in East African market for any organization that is operating around those spaces, then you are assured of, I think, underlying infrastructure that will enable you to grow forward. I think I've spoke about 3.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me put you to the stand. Which is the other one I've left, which I've not spoken about?
I think you've mentioned all of them.
Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned all of them. That's good. So to Julius and Beth, I don't know if you guys are still around. Julius and Beth, yeah. I've been trying to get you guys on board. So you know that Servercore offers availability, and our uptime is also almost great. So don't just nod. I need you to start. Of course, onboarding Servercore's infrastructure, but to everyone, one important thing about Servercore, of course, once we understand your infrastructure and what you guys need to move and push, we offer a testing period, okay, of which I know for most organization, a testing period is usually very important. We do offer that to when we try and understand your infrastructure. We give a testing period for almost a month, where you test the latencies, the pricing, each and everything that you might want to have on Servercore infrastructure. I mean, Steve, you've been there on the first forefront and seen what we offer in terms of testing period. And of course, Steve can apart from Go deliveries and many other clients that are here, can attest that Servercore's infrastructure is usually, of course, the best when it comes to the market so far. So I have 2 last questions, but I'll throw it to the panel. I won't touch anyone. Anyone can answer. My first question maybe to the panel is, in the African tech ecosystem, okay, what unique challenges or opportunities do you see when it comes to building secure, scalable infrastructure? I'll repeat the question. And the African tech ecosystem. Of course, now we understand that Africa is going to the digital transformation. Of course, with the introduction of Equity, M-Pesa, and fiber optic cables. Of course, now everyone, even the rural areas, being able to access the internet. What unique challenges or opportunities do you see when it comes to building secure, scalable infrastructure? Anyone can answer.
Right. I think on my end, I've been huge on AI, and this is a topic, I don't know if it has been covered here.
Harry will cover it. Harry will cover it.
Okay.
No, on a serious note, he will.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll wait for that. But anyway, so artificial intelligence is something that I think will change the African tech ecosystem in a huge way. And this is because we have so many things that within the value chain of, say, security, in this instance, can rely heavily on artificial intelligence. Some things are mundane, right? We talked about how can you, say, ensure your system is well secure against certain vulnerabilities, right? These are things that artificial intelligence can do for you, right? Internally within Triply, this is something I tell my developers, leverage AI as much as you can, right? Because even before we talk about CI/CD, even before we talk about some of the tools that we use pre and post deployment to detect some of these things, artificial intelligence can ideally help you detect this during code development, right? So, so artificial intelligence is something that I'd urge each and every developer in the room to look at very keenly. Because again, it's not coming to replace you as a developer. I know developers have this notion of, you know what, there's Copilot, you can generate boilerplate code for a certain app within 5 minutes. It is a tool that is there for you to sort of like leverage and use to sort of like assist you in your day-to-days. So in so many words, AI.
Yeah,
great.
True. That's very true. And AI comes into play in many ways. Let's say for fintechs, of course, for fraud detection and threat detection. Let's say for healthcare institutions, for anomalies when it comes to predictive analysis of a patient's, what is it called, report and everything. Harry, what would you have to say? What Servercore has in terms of AI, and what do we support in terms of the infrastructure for AI development and deployment for institutions in that matter?
Yeah, so in terms of AI, I think I like Collins' statement on developers should not be afraid that it will replace them. But also, as much as you use AI, the AI model is always learning at all times. All the requests that you send, it's in a learning process. So from a security perspective, I like to say, use AI models that have been verified. Yeah. It's not all AI models. Some are more of a biased basis. But let's try to use AI that are more verified with security organizations that really try to secure our platforms. And in terms of Servercore, well, we offer infrastructure that, like servers that have GPU aspect in it. I think that can always accommodate any AI requirements that come on board. And from that perspective, I think you are assured of reliability and also security aspects, even for the AI models that you build in our infrastructure. So I think with that, there's much I can say about AI. And also one thing else, in terms of we use AI in Servercore itself. We have our documentation, and we have an AI model. Actually, you always use it much because it gives me what consistent and also direct answers that I want for a specific question. So I think AI is the way to go. It's only that you have to put some security measures as you are using it. Yeah? Don't just follow it blindly. Like I was saying, infrastructure is called blind. So you try to follow it with an aspect and also more of like be what do you call it? Open-minded. Yes.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Harry. And maybe my last question will be maybe to Faisal or anyone who wants to answer the question. I think is it Faisal that you mentioned about zero trust, right? Is it Faisal or I think someone mentioned, but yeah, Harry. So I'll throw it to anyone who will want to answer. So zero trust and least privileges are popular models. Can you share a real world challenge or success story implementing this in a fast growing tech organization? So anyone can answer.
Yeah, the reason why I giggled is because it happened quite recently. So you have, of course, in any startup, right? You have high levels of attrition, right? So, of course, you have developers who are coming, right, and developers who are going at a very fast pace, right? It's a reality of things. So the issue was we had the founding team, right? And these are brilliant engineers we had on board, and they got us to where we are today by a huge mile. But again, when you're starting up, you have a lot of trust, right, to begin with. So it means that some things that you think should be done are oftenly overlooked. Things such as, again, we talked about secret management. We talked of things such as code review, API endpoint security. Those things were overlooked. So you had developers who were leaving, and they had access to access to information within Triply that essentially would allow them to, for lack of a better word, do us the thing, right? Kufanywa ile kitu. Yeah. So, so that essentially happened to some extent, right? So we had to firefight to ensure that, first of all, whatever secrets that were used were terminated within time and still did not stop the product from servicing its customers. So you would imagine we were up till midnight trying to replace our Daraja secrets, our whatever secrets, to ensure that that doesn't happen. So I think that's certainly one real world scenario where, for lack of a better word, I think this is so close to me as a person, right? Because I mean, you own the product, you own some of these things, and some of these blames. I mean, who else to blame, right? Yeah. So yeah, so that's certainly one real life scenario for such a case.
Okay. Thank you so much, Collins. I'll give the guests maybe 2 questions in case you have two, actually 2, for the panelists. In case you have any other further questions, of course, these guests are still here. So I don't know where my guys are. There's the first question that was raised there, the guy with the dreads, with the locks, yeah, that one. Yeah.
So yeah, this question goes to Collins. So what will you compromise over another? Is it trust, price, or security?
I mean, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I think from my story, it's pretty evident what I'd compromise. So I think for me, it's security above all from my learnings, but also at the same time find people, particularly when you're building your startup, people who you can trust, but at the same time, don't trust blindly. Right.
Mm-hmm. No, there was another question on okay. Yeah.
My question is, when you're using AI in your internal teams, how do you go about still maintaining intellectual property and privacy measures? Do you, let's say, use Grok with a filter on top of it, or do you have internal Olama or internal instances or LLM models? I think this goes to anybody who is able to answer. If all of you are able to answer, what do you do when you're using AI?
Clarify the question. Is it when using AI, for example, to code?
Yes, to code, and mainly to code, or anything concerning the internal team usage, because that's why now we're mainly dealing with the intellectual property part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with tools such as Copilot, which developers use heavily, this is something that I've had guys all the way to investors ask me, you guys have heavy use of AI. How are you controlling IP, right? And what I say is that you use AI to generate code that is mostly mundane, right? You're not gonna spend 5 minutes generating a class that does very petty things, right? You'd rather use AI for that, right? But you're not gonna base your business logic off of what Copilot gives you, right? So essentially, it's doing that, and also like having countermeasures that ensures, again, you have your CI/CD pipelines that ensure AI generated code does not infringe IP rights. And at the same time, ensuring that some of the code that you're using, there's licenses that govern that as well. So ensuring that you're not using code that is in some of those strict sort of licenses.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the end of the questions. The panelists are still here. Let's give, you can always ask them questions. They're still here. So let's give a round of applause to Collins. And let's give a round of applause to Faizal. Last but not least, let's give a round of applause to Hare.